So let's go over the glide board. The first component is strength. So if someone's doing, let's say, a low chest press like Jeff here, so if he's moving through and I feel like he might need a little bit of assistance, we use something called self-spotting, or I tell my clients, can you just put your feet on the floor and just give yourself a little bit of assistance. Now with the power tower, I can easily adjust while he's moving, but sometimes we don't want to do that because we might want to transition into another exercise. So it's a really nice way to accommodate for strength right away. Now if you want to make the exercise harder, he can place his feet up. So we use the word straddling or staggering. In this position, if he's long sitting, that requires a lot of hamstring flexibility. So now we're kind of moving into the mobility section. So if he's having problems there, sometimes bending the knees might help. I often find that people might grip with their hip flexors, and this actually changes more the stabilization requirements. So oftentimes when I'm working with my patients, I'll have them straddle and just have their feet up off the ground. So one of the nice things is we're going to transition to back rowing. So I'm going to have you stand up and you're going to turn around. When he goes to sit down, he'll anchor down, as we talked about earlier, and then he'll start just with a simple rowing maneuver. So a lot of us have hamstrings that are a little bit tighter. So in this position, if I was focusing more on the alignment of the spine, I'm going to use the fact that this board moves up and down. So place your feet down, anchor down for me. And then I'm going to stand up. I'm going to bring the board up to either parallel, or I can even encourage him to go more into a neutral position, if not an anterior tilt, and have him be performing the exercise here. It feels very different in the body. So think about the fact that this board moves and how I haven't changed the exercise, I haven't changed the force required, but I definitely have changed the stabilization requirements. So moving on from that, I'm going to have you anchor down and stand up. The glide board, it comes to a parallel position. So when someone is seated lateral, for instance, I'm going to have you go into a torso rotation, and we'll use one handle for this. He'll anchor down. People don't know where to do with their legs. So I have people start with a widened base of support with their feet down on the ground, so they're self-spotting and giving themselves more stabilization. They'll just start with a simple torso rotation. Moving from here, you can still go narrow base of support with the legs. And then you can go wide again with the legs and legs up, and then you can bring them together. But this requires a lot of strength and stability. So for people, what I tend to do is have them sit mermaid or merman. So mermaid would be one leg can be back, the other leg's crossed in front. It takes a lot of hip mobility and not often something that we see with people. So this leg can come out, and then he can have a little bit of a figure four. It doesn't have to be positioned like this. You can do it the other way, where the leg closest to the base is bent and the other leg is straight, whatever feels or looks the best for your client. So that's mobility and how to accommodate. The next thing is moving more toward the awareness section. I'm going to have him anchor and stand up. One of the beautiful things is that you can take the total gym and you can take an exercise such as the plank and really kind of build upon it. So let's say I'm going to bring this down and I'm going to have him move to where he's going to be in a push-up position. And if he's doing a push-up and I think this is easy, or it's a good strength requirement for him, but I want to make the exercise a little bit more challenging for stabilization, I can have him walk his hands down the board, push the board up, and now we turn this an open position. So that gives a lot more feedback if you might be moving or tweaking or compensating some way, and it makes it a lot more challenging. So going with this concept of open, you can slowly come back. I'm going to have you straddle, push the board up, and take a seat at the bottom facing away from the tower. So you're going to go the other way. We're making it realistic for you.
There you go.
Push up, and you're going to go into what we call a roll up. So I'm going to have you stand up and sit at the very edge of the glide board. Your feet will go right at the base. And I love this for the fact that this allows for some proprioception and some awareness of what the pelvis is doing. So let's say we're going to work on a roll up. So we have people roll up and down. And oftentimes we see a hinging happening at the spine. So I'll stop someone and I'll have his hands come down just a little bit. And he can put his hands on his pelvis for feedback. And I use the fact that the board moves and he can tuck under and push back to allow him to develop the awareness of movement and isolation of the pelvis. Oftentimes, I really say, let's really move and let the glide board move and really kind of tuck under and back and let the entire body get into the motion, and then really tell, okay, keep the shoulders stable, and then just really start to isolate it out. It's nice because sometimes a ball has too many components. It requires lateral, anterior, posterior stability, and this just can take away one of the components and really allow someone to develop that awareness of how to move their pelvis. So the last thing I want to go over is the fact that I'm going to have you slowly stand up. I'll stabilize the board for you. Is that the board, again, comes up. And I love, love, love this feature. Because oftentimes we are working with planks and for shoulder stabilization. And we go from like a plinth to maybe a bench to a floor. And it's kind of hard to document when they're building their progression in strength. But what's nice is that I can bend this all the way up, and this will help segment our way into when we discuss the tower and the incline. But the fact that if this is too narrow of a base of support when doing your planks, you can now move to this position, and now they have a nice array and a nice space where they can move, and they can do staggered position, and they can then accommodate for any restrictions in the shoulders or any mobility or strength requirement or strength limitations. So that's the glide board.